Welcome everyone to another episode of Grow Your Mind, brought to you by Grow You Now. The timing cannot be better. A lot of us are going through that. We celebrate high achievers. We praise the hustle, the late nights, the relentless drive for perfection. But we rarely talk about the dark shadow that follows all that success. And the higher you climb, the louder that internal voice whispers that you do not belong. Again, Doctor, do you have any initial thoughts, comments you'd like to share before we continue?
No, I'm happy to jump in. Thank you for your kind words, and hopefully this will be just as helpful for people.
Let's get started. Why do high achievers feel that they can never deliver anything short of perfect? There are a lot of us who feel that way. And Doctor, in your experience, where does this drive for perfection really come from?
It usually starts as being something related to safety. So somewhere on a high achiever's lifeline, they probably learned that things like love, approval, belonging, positive attention is conditional on performance. And I had burned dinner at one point, and just as I was pulling out, the burned food out of the oven, my daughter had walked up. She was young at the time, and I said, "Oh, I'm so stupid." So just that one little comment, now I've just told that little girl, Mommy thinks people are stupid if they make a mistake. So even subtle messages, not even directed to us, right? From a very young age, we sort of have this fusion between our identity, who we are, and our output. And so our identity and self-worth is really completely defined by outcomes. And so there's so many of those messages. We've learned that perfectionism is the way to gain that approval. So it's hard to say, right? There's just so many messages, and then it's just compounded over time. And we see this with perfectionism. It isn't other people's expectations, at least not now as adults. It's our own, right? Because they've become so embedded and ingrained.
Amongst all of this, where does feeling that we're not doing enough or we are not enough, how does that factor in?
I think some of the social comparison piece comes in, whether it's real or not. I mean, a lot of it is just our own conspiracy theories, right? When we don't have all of the information, right? There's gaps in our knowledge. We fill it in with worst case scenarios, but we know stories where we don't have all the information. We fill it in with something scary. Worst case, it's a conspiracy. And so we're sort of spinning our own things, and it looks different for everyone, but that could be why. Like, this sense of I don't have enough time, I'm not getting through everything that I want, it's because we do have such high expectations. And the problem is, once we have such a negative bias, even when we hit those expectations, we're already diminishing it. But everybody does that. I know I did that when I got my master's. Oh, well, everybody's got their master's, right? And then I got my PhD. Well, yeah, but everybody's got their PhD. But in reality, like, we just narrow in and zoom in. We're very narrow focused. Whereas if we took a step back and saw the broader picture, actually, not a lot of people do, right? And we forget to pay attention to our successes. Even when we achieve that success, it still feels empty, right?
Yeah. I come across a lot of high performers, people that I would, look up to and learn from. And when I talk to them, they tell me that, yeah, it wasn't that impressive. Or if I ask them to describe their work experience, they say it in a very trivial way, like, yeah, we're supposed to be able to do this. This is a no-brainer. That they're not that impressive. How do people navigate what's within their control and what's outside of their control so that they don't limit themselves and don't feel like what they're doing is not enough?
Well, when we look at what's in our control and what's out of our control, I mean, putting pen to paper is really important, because otherwise we just get caught up, right? We're in this sort of repetitive loop over a problem, over what we did or didn't do, what other people are doing. And so any of that sort of thing, we just need to put pen to paper. And literally I would draw like what's in my control, what's out of my control. What's out of my control, we have to practice radical acceptance, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not that we have to agree with the circumstances. It's not that we have to like what the circumstances are, right? But it's just, it is what it is. And why waste? I mean, suffering comes wasting our time there with what's out of our control. So if we can look at what is within my influence, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we do need to start looking at those, what is sort of realistic. But even with perfectionism, it's just about what's next in terms of if I've made a mistake rather than dwelling on it. It's like, okay, this sucks, right? I don't like it. But what do I need to do? What have I learned from this to
Mm-hmm.
take the next step? And I think that that's the key piece is a lot of perfectionists are contextual thinkers, meaning
Mm-hmm.
everything's got to be perfect. But the procedural thinker says, okay, sucks, not ideal. What do I need to do next? I need to stand up. What do I need to do next? I need to start running. What do I need to do next? I got to try to catch up to that person. What do I need to do next? I got to finish the race. And she did. She finished the race and she won. Like she just gunned it and she won. And it's just such a good, inspiring sort of video because the person who won was the person who made a mistake but kept going, right?
Mm-hmm.
The hero of the story was the one who fell down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a procedural thinker, and that's really what we need to start moving towards is radical acceptance and sort of procedural thinking.
That was incredible. I do want to expand on that because there's another aspect, the aspect on comparison.
Yeah.
So we're talking about things within our control, things out of our control. It's still happening to us. Comparison is the thief of joy, but there's something more deeper, maybe sinister happening, at least in my opinion. How do we be procedural and not look to the right and say, this person was ahead of me, now I should give up because what's the point?
And I fall into that too. And it's hard to say, just don't do it, right? It's just like me saying, don't think of a cat. Whatever you do, don't think of a cat. I mean, our brain just goes there, right?
Yeah.
Social comparison is brutal. And I think that that's a huge crux of everything that we're talking about. It's one of the biggest problems in the world today, and especially with social media. So I think that's the biggest thing is just to remind ourselves that that's a curated world.
I want to leverage your expertise and professionalism. So I've come across this one story where this is very relevant to a lot of job seekers right now. These high performers who think that they are not good enough. They had a bunch of people where they put a scar on, like they painted a scar on their face with makeup, and they said that you're going to go on an interview. And then kind of remember how the interview went, document your experience, and let us know how it went.
You know, I do a lot of public speaking, and for years, there was a lot of pressure to show my authority, to say the right things and to use big words and to, to be all of those things. But it was so much pressure. And then whenever I start talking about kids or any experiences like with trauma and things like that, I get teary. I just get so emotional. And that was always one of the big things. Like, I can't cry. People aren't going to take me seriously. Okay. But I showed my own vulnerability. And this is something that I tell leaders all the time. We need to be able to show our own vulnerability to be able to normalize this. And it just takes the pressure off. So when I go in, and I'm talking like even when I've got thousands, 10,000 people in the room, I kind of have this disclaimer. I tell them that I'm ADHD, so I might mess up my words. Everything sounds fantastic in my head, but if it doesn't make any sense to you at all, to stop me and to ask me questions, right? So I kind of just share that vulnerability.
What is the pragmatic approach to doing that?
Yeah, the only tricky thing is if we go in there, and this is what happens with when we have like everybody's shoving affirmations down your throat. There's so many, it drives me nuts. This is like social comparison. There's so many people out there who are making millions of dollars, billions of dollars, who are saying like, give yourself a high five in the morning or whatever, like all of these positive affirmations, but they're just empty. And then what happens if you don't get that job? You go in there and you're confident and you're doing those things. It's just going to create a bigger dissonance, and you're going to fall even further, right? And so I would say we got to take the good and the bad, right? The positive and the downside, and have a more realistic, as happy as possible. Try to make it, funny and as happy as possible. And then another group, they don't say anything at all. The people who were told to be happy actually were more depressed coming out than the people who didn't. And same thing, they've done research as well where they're like, go in, give yourself all these positive affirmations, say that you're confident, you're great, and all these things. And then the other ones were told the good and the bad and the ugly. Like, go in, look at the mirror and say all the good and the bad and the ugly. They actually had stronger self-esteem coming out, the ones who were able to acknowledge both sides of things. So I do think that that's important, that we're looking at, but it's not a weakness that we hide. It's something that we can grow. And when we look at the top performers and top CEOs, the one characteristic that they have in common is that they look forward to making a mistake, because they know that that's where growth is. And so that mindset is one of the pieces that we really need to look at.
How does the team functions where you have all perfectionists in a team operating at different levels of perfection, and then they will feed off of each other, and there's a spiral in which the team will be stuck? What are your observations?
I think it's not just within us. It's really what we need to do is look at the whole system for your own self, and maybe with your own family, is have a mistake of the day. And if you have kids, do it with your kids. What was the mistake of the day and what did I learn from it? You're only moving forward and growing if you can do a little bit better than yesterday. What went well? And what is something that I can do a little bit differently tomorrow, right? What part was working? What part wasn't working? And what do we need to do next? It always kind of comes back to that piece, right? That's really important. I remember what I was going to say before.
Go ahead. Yes, let's do it.
Rejection practice. Rejection is the number one feeling that feels the worst in the body, right? And so same thing, if we're going into a speech or we're going to go into a job interview, rejection is so ingrained in our nervous system and it feels terrible. So the more rejection practice that we can do, the more we can tolerate it.
I love that. I think personally, I need to do that as an entrepreneur, as a coach, as a human being. Just getting comfortable with rejection so that my lizard brain doesn't kick in and I don't bite back. As simple as that. So thank you so much for your time. And thank you, everyone, and catch you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.